Hey viewers, it's Tuesday on Pagan Perspective, and this week's topic is fairies. It's week 23. I'm basically going to talk about fairies in the media, because I think that's kind of a cool thing, and I'm going to start by telling you a story, sort of. So, sorry, I'm doing my video in the lounge today, so all of my friends are right over there. We all have headphones on. Anyway, they're great, so they're totally supportive of the channel. But anyway, so here's my story. My experience with fairies and my first exposure to fairies was through the Flower Fairies book series by Cicely Mary Barker. And some of them are poems, but the first one that I got was just one of those like sticker books where it had the big fold-out pages, and there were 4 or 5 different scenes. 4 of the scenes I know were of a forest in all 4 different seasons, and they had those like removable stickers, like the reusable stickers that you could like put the flower fairies next to their flower and have them be flying around and whatever and take them off and put them back. And I'm the kind of kid that's really super organized, so whenever I was done playing with them, I would always take them off and put them exactly back in the little spot on the sticker sheet, and I had so much fun. Well, that's not how I first heard about fairies, but that's really how I learned about, like, different flowers and what Cicely Mary Barker's fairies were like. And I always thought they were so cute and pretty, and she always depicted them as being very friendly, and, you know, like little butterflies and bumblebees and stuff, and it's just, it's so great. It's such a cute kids thing. And then I also had this little book, can't remember what it's called, but I think I still have it, and it had little envelopes in the back that you could like write your own letters to the fairies, and the story was about a girl who wrote letters to fairies in her garden, and they wrote letters back to her about liking the tea and the cakes that she left them and things like that. And it was just all very cute and adorable. And one of my favorite movies, jumping ship here, jumping the track, is Labyrinth with David Bowie. And the fairies in that are little nasty little tricksters. And the interesting thing about that was that, you know, Hoggle in the first scene where Sarah approaches the labyrinth, spoilers, you should have all seen Labyrinth. Hoggle is spraying all of the fairies that he can. He's like spraying them with like pesticide or something, some like kind of like bug spray, and like making them fall and die. And Sarah's like, "What are you doing? How could you do that? How could you be so mean?" And Hoggle basically tells her like, you know, like, well, they're nasty and whatever. And so she tries to go and like help one up that has been shot down by the bug spray, for lack of a better term, and it bites her. And she's really surprised that these fairies are not nice. And that would have been my reaction, because I was always taught that fairies are nice and kind and whatever, and there are other fairy-like beings that are mischievous and maybe not the most kind-hearted, like pixies, for example. I was always taught are mischievous and troublesome. But fairies, no. So, you know, much like Sarah, I would have been very, very surprised by that. It's like you don't think that, I don't know, something that's associated with flowers would be like that. And then the fairies in Pan's Labyrinth, which you guys know I've seen just recently for the first time. The fairies in Pan's Labyrinth are really, like, we don't really know what's going on with them. Like, it looks like a flying, like, praying mantis bug thing, and Ophelia thinks it's a fairy, and so it literally transforms itself into the picture of a fairy that she showed it. And so it becomes a fairy. And we don't really know if they're good or bad. Like, they seem like they're not helping her because they're helping Pan, but it all turns out good in the end, so we don't really know whether to think they're good or bad. And that's kind of how I feel about fairies right now, is that I don't really know how to feel like if they're good or bad. And I haven't had an experience with fairies, per se, but you better believe I write them letters and leave them in the garden, because I do. I believe in fairies the same way that I believe in any other spirit of a plant, but just because of Cicely Mary Barker's stories and poems and illustrations and things like that, I associate them with flowers. So whereas I would view a tree spirit as something like a sprite or an elf, I would view the spirit of a rose as a fairy. And, oh, one other thing, I guess this isn't my experience, but a friend of my mother's brought us a picture once that she thought was of a fairy, and it looks like what a fairy looks like, what you think a fairy would look like, and it's like sitting on a rose, sort of like over a jar, but it's not like tangible. It's like lights. It's like neon light in the form of what you think the shape would look like. Sort of like how I saw my grandfather after he died in his ghost form. He was like in purple neon lights. That's what this fairy looks like. It makes me wonder if all otherworldly beings show up as like neon lights or something. So fairies, I believe in them. I don't know if they're good or bad, but they're portrayed everywhere in so many ways. Even Shakespeare has used fairies in Midsummer Night's Dream to sort of, you know, that otherworldly, weird sort of feeling that we don't know what's going on. And so there's this weird thing about fairies that some people like them, some people think they're evil. I don't know. So what do you guys know? What do you know about fairies? Do any of you know of Cicely Mary Barker? Are your fairies the good, cute, kindly ones that eat cake in your garden? I don't know. Or do you think of them as evil, mischievous? Maybe not evil, but mischievous, troublesome little gnats, sort of. All right, you've seen this like 5 times, the fairy ring, right? Most of the characters in here on this deck of cards are not fairies. Some of them are, and they all have varying stories. The explanation in this book of one of the cards actually refers to things like the Fuca, Robin Goodfellow, and Boggarts as fairies. So the definition of fairy, I'm not exactly sure. And of course, if I could get on the internet, I would look up a definition of fairy for you. But how do you think of fairies? Because I think of fairies as the little human-bodied things with, like, butterfly wings. Or, like, dragonfly wings. That's how and maybe they have antennae, maybe they don't. That's how I draw them from my mind. That's how I think of them. But I guess fairy, really, the term is, like, it really depends. It depends on who you ask. It depends on where you come from. It depends on the stories that you know and the books that you read and the movies you see. And one of my favorite movies as a child was Fairy Tale, which was supposed to be based on a true story of these girls that found fairies in the river in their backyard and took pictures of them, and everyone thought they faked the pictures, but it turned out they were real. And my mom sold that video recently, but it's getting really loud in my lounge right now, and I'm nearing the end of what I have to say. So what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think of fairies? How do you picture them? Do you think they're good? Are they bad? Are they useful? Are they annoying? And tell me some of your favorite books and movies that talk about fairies. So that's it. Until next week, I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and blessed be.